Well, Disney's D23 Expo has come and gone, and in this, my post-Disney fan stage or my late stage Disney fan stage, it's it was difficult for me to be excited about anything that they mentioned. I haven't even watched the trailers yet because I could not care less about live action Snow White, live action Lilo and Stitch, uh, prequel to live action Lion King, Frozen 3, Toy Story 5, Moana 2, any of those things. All those things that would be direct to video sequels 20 years ago. Could not care less about them. Don't need the negativity in my life of actually watching those trailers. The parks announcements, mostly a wash for me as well, because I'm not planning on taking a Disney cruise. They've already gotten rid of so much I liked at Disney World and priced me out of it anyways, so it's kind of irrelevant. Um, so it's like, I don't really mind that they're replacing Dino Land and Animal Kingdom with South America. That's fine. I thought Dino Land was cute, but I wasn't like deeply attached to it. So replacing South America, replacing Dinosaur Ride, which I didn't like with Indiana Jones, that's fine, whatever. Villains Land, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have been all on board with Villains Land. But now, I don't trust modern Disney to actually do a good job with anything. They didn't do a good job with Tiana. They didn't do a good job with Country Bears. They didn't do a good job with changing and vandalizing parts of the Caribbean. So I don't trust them to do a good job with Villains Land. So I can't really be excited about it. And it's in Disney World anyways, so it might as well not exist. And then there was the news that they're going to replace the Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island with Cars Land. And that is unbelievable in the first place. Um, and then that really brought out the toxic fans. And I don't mean the critics. I think the critics actually have the most sincere and valid opinion about this. It brought out the toxic positivity out of fans. These fans who are like, oh yeah, well, if you don't like it, you. I didn't like Rivers of America. I didn't like Tom Sawyer Island, so I'm glad it's going you. Um, those are the people. It really brought those people, that petty, mean-spirited people who are just rubbing it in that this whole huge area of the park, the heart of Frontierland, is being demolished and replaced by Cars Land, which is effectively the death of Frontierland. It's turning Frontierland into Tomorrowland. With it's just a dump for IP that's just sort of vaguely connected with this idea of, oh, it's like the Western U.S. states. Oh, it's science fiction. Just this IP dump. It's the death of these lands. And like these toxic positivity fans, who just can't give it a minute, can't give people a minute to process it and to grieve it, and to grieve what is being lost. Because yes, something is being lost. Oh well, nobody went there. Nobody mentions Liberty Bell as their favorite ride. That's not the point. There are attractions and things in Disney parks that are there not because they are crowded, not because they're people's favorite e-ticket attractions. They're there because they add texture and flavor and variety and space, and Disney wouldn't be Disney without those things. Nobody mentions Shrunken Ned or Esmeralda or Fortune Red or the Mark Twain or the Liberty Bell riverboats or Tom Sawyer Island or the People Mover or even necessarily like the Country Bears or the Enchanted Tiki Room or even things like the Jungle Cruise as their favorite ride, their favorite attraction. It's always the big rides, right? It's like Haunted Mansion or Space Mountain or Big Thunder Mountain or Splash Mountain. Oh, Splash Mountain as their favorite rides. But all these other things add this, again, this texture, this flavor to going to a Disney park. And that Disney wouldn't be Disney without them. Because in between those big rides, there are those little things that you do. You grab a Dole Whip, you grab a Mint Julep, you go over to the Mark Twain, you ride that around. You go over to Tom Sawyer Island, where you actually have space. You're not crushed by people. You're not hemmed in by concrete and fiberglass. You have this naturalized park-like space where you can just walk around and you're not crowded with people, and you get to just enjoy this riverfront, this waterfront, right? You get to enjoy your mint julep, sitting on the shores of the rivers of America and just watching the boats go by, watching the canoes go by, those sorts of things. And you get to take that time out. And that time out, it builds those emotional connections because that's what Disney is actually selling. Disney does not sell movies and theme parks and cruise ships and toys, things like that. What Disney sells, Disney's product, are the emotional associations that you make with the brand. You look at the advertising for Disney parks. Yeah, sometimes they advertise a new ride, but most of the time they're not advertising specific rides. They're advertising the feelings you feel when you go to a Disney park. They're advertising magic and joy and memories and dreams and all those things they name cruise ships after. They're selling the emotional associations you make with the brand. And that's what they want. They want you to be emotionally invested in the brand because when you're emotionally invested, you go and you spend money. That's that connection, right? You think about, oh, those memories I had at Disney, I want to recapture that. I want to spend thousands of dollars to go to a Disney park. They want you to develop those emotional connections. And they do. And you get emotionally connected to these things, and then they take them away. And for me, it's like a personal attack because they keep taking out exactly all the things that I like. I liked Tower of Terror. I liked Pirates of the Caribbean. I liked Splash Mountain. I liked Tom Sawyer Island. In fact, I actually do mention the Mark Twain Riverboat as one of my favorite attractions. It's the only attraction poster I have in my home. It's upstairs in the living room right now. It's the only attraction poster that we have in our home. Because I actually loved it. I love antiquated forms of transportation, so whether that's like flying boats, river boats, steam trains, zeppelins, whatever. Antiquated transportation. I love that. And the rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island actually provoked me to want to read Mark Twain, to read the source material, right? Because you go to Disneyland, it's like, okay, I've seen all the movies these things are based on, but here's the Mark Twain Riverboat, here's Tom Sawyer Island. What is the connection with the source material? So it got me to read Mark Twain, and Mark Twain is my favorite American author. It's my second favorite author overall after Jules Verne. So I got really attached to these things. And when we went to Disney World, I was actually, one of the things I was really excited about was seeing Tom Sawyer Island. Um, because it was actually what Tom Sawyer Island at Disneyland used to be. I didn't go to Disneyland for the first time until I was 27 years old. I didn't ever go as a kid. My image of Disneyland as a child was built up by watching Family Channel, which is our version of Disney, the Disney Channel here in Canada, watching reruns of the Mickey Mouse Club and Wonderful World of Disney and stuff, and seeing them, the Mickey Mouse Club running around Tom Sawyer Island, running around Fort Wilderness, having that image in my head. And then as an adult, getting back into Disney and watching stuff like A Day at Disneyland, the old VHS tape, and seeing people again running around Fort Wilderness and whatever. And wanting to do that myself. And so imagine my disappointment when I finally did get to Disneyland and Fort Wilderness was closed and then demolished, when Tom Sawyer Island was sort of degraded to the point where they just replaced it with pirates. So to go to Disney World and see Tom Sawyer Island as it was supposed to be, to see Fort Langhorne open and you could run around in it, um, to these caves that had all these really cool things in there, these really cool things, these optical illusions and these tricks and all sort of stuff, was like super neat. And emotionally, to be able to get away from the crowds and the fiberglass and the concrete, to go to a more naturalized park-like setting, to just walk among nature and some trees and where you're not surrounded by millions of people, was really nice to have that escape. Emotionally necessary for a lot of people who have to deal with sort of sensory overload and oversensitivity and sensitivity to crowds and people who are introverts, just to be able to have a space where we can get away from the crowd, little corner in the offside. And I would even argue that the Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island are the heart of Frontierland because that um is that open river, that backwoods frontier, that unexplored land, right? And we can talk about the racial issues involved and indigenous peoples and that sort of thing. I understand that. But we're talking, I mean, Disneyland is all about the romantic myths of things. And so this is the romantic myth of the Old West. And there are ways, in fact, Disneyland actually in the past did this better, where they actually had the native village and actual native people doing actual, like, authentic native dances and stuff at Disneyland. Um, that they actually have gotten less inclusive over time with that. Um, but that romantic myth of the Old West, the open American frontier, and I'm gonna bring up Walt Disney here, and I know, oh, nobody knows what Walt Disney would have done. And didn't you know Disney said Disneyland would not be a museum and are always changing, so Walt Disney automatically pre-approves everything Disney does now. Well, here's the thing, yeah, I don't know what Disney would do now, but I do know what Disney did back then. And back then, he did take a huge parcel of land in his park and build a river and an island in there to represent these rivers, to have these wide open spaces, to be, what he experienced as a child, where you could still go to the edge of the town and there was wide open space for children to play and to explore and to be in that we don't have today in cities and um, in our current political climate and whatever, where we're all afraid of each other and there's just not room for people to go out and explore, for kids to just go out and hurt themselves and explore in the woods at the edge of town. That doesn't exist anymore. And that's what that represented. And so, yeah, the profit per square foot ratio is really bad for the Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island. But that's not the point. Is that Walt put in these things, all these things, where Disneyland wouldn't be Disney without it, to add that space, to add that texture, that flavor, that that dynamism to it. Not the dynamic of just, oh look, there's another roller coaster going by, but the change of scene from the fiberglass and concrete to the forest and trees and the dirt paths, to have that space for kids to explore safely, right? In a Disney park, in a controlled environment, but still replicating that sense of the unknown and the exploration where children can test themselves. And yeah, they might scrape their knees, and that's okay, right? Because that's how kids forever lived until recently. That's the heart of Frontierland there. And Walt deliberately put that in there. So now they're going to take it out and replace it with friggin' Cars Land, and which is the death of Frontierland. Not just because they're ripping out the heart of it, but also because they're replacing it with just a random IP. It's turning into Tomorrowland, which is just IP dump land. It's sort of vaguely connected with this idea of the Western frontier. Um, Doing things that I could go do in real life. I can go 4x4ing through a national forest or whatever in real life for cheaper than at Disneyland. I can drive down to Montana, drive down to Wyoming, and go do that. Um, a pass to an annual pass to all of the American national parks is $80 US. That's less than 1 day at Magic Kingdom. You can get an annual pass to all of the American national parks and monuments and forests and so on. To stay at Old Faithful Inn in Yellowstone is cheaper than staying at Wilderness Lodge or the Grand Californian. I when we actually allowed ourselves a day to really take in California Adventure, I loved Grizzly Peak because it captured the mystique of the national parks. But it's like, yeah, I can just go to a national park though. I can just go to the real thing, right? So I'm not like broken up about like, oh, I'm I need to go to California Adventure to experience that. No, I can just go to like actual like Sequoia and Yosemite and Kings Canyon and whatever and see the real thing. Disneyland is at its best when it is when you leave today and enter the worlds of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. That's why Pixar has never belonged in the parks, because Pixar movies are always about today. Um, Finding Nemo, Toys, Monsters Inc., Cars. That's all movies that take place today. Pixar is about today, and Disneyland is about leaving today and entering the worlds of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. They're at their best when they're giving you experiences you can't get in real life. In real life, I can't take a paddle wheeler steamship down the unexplored rivers of the frontier, the American frontier. That doesn't really exist anymore. So that's where Disney was at its best. But now it's like, oh, we're taking that out, and the Country Bears look like a parody of, country music singers from the 50s. This modern satire of country music singing crappy Disney songs. Cars Land takes place in the modern day. So now it's just sort of like vague national parks land, which is like, I can just go to a national park then for cheaper than go to Disney World. So it's missing the point and replacing it with, again, the modern day, the modern world. Using up that space that you could get away from those things. And now, so if that's the case, then, well, I'll just go to Hannibal, Missouri, which is the boyhood home of Mark Twain, which has a charming 19th century waterfront, has the Mississippi River, has forests, has caves, has islands, and has a riverboat on there. And yeah, it's the modern day, but so is Disney. So whatever, I'm gonna just go to the cheaper version that's real, than to the fake Disney version that's more expensive. And then along come the toxic Disney fans who are like, oh yeah, well, if you don't like it, fine, good, leave, go away, you, more room for me. Less people in line, which is not the own you think it is. Like, okay, yeah, you go stand in line for thousands of dollars a day. You go do that. And I'll go do the real thing elsewhere and have more fun and spend less money. Good job. Okay, you got me. These people act like you're blaspheming their religion. You're a heretic. You're a blasphemer. That Disney is their religion. Disney is their identity. Disney is their values and morals and existential sense of meaning and purpose in the world. Especially if you are a Disney vlogger, because that's your bag, right? That's your job, is going to Disney and being a Disney fan. That's your job. So of course, you're going to react to criticism with the vigor of a zealot attacking a heretic and a blasphemer. Just give people a minute. God. Like, people get emotionally attached to Disney because that's what Disney wants. That's what Disney does. That's what the Disney brand is. And I mean, you bought into it hook, line, and sinker, whole hog. Disney's your religion, and I get that. But that means you should understand that when something changes, people might be upset about that because they were emotionally attached to the old thing. People are emotionally attached to Splash Mountain. So give them a minute without calling them a racist and whatever, because you downloaded what you're supposed to call people from the head office. When they make changes to the Rivers of America, Pirates of the Caribbean, get rid of the Rivers of America altogether, whatever. When they make changes, when they change things, they get rid of things, give people a minute. They were emotionally attached to that. And trust me, Disney wants people to be emotionally attached to it. That's why they advertise. That's why they build it up. That's why they want to make those connections. You don't want people who are just like, Disney changed a ride, whatever, it's just a ride. Because if it's just a ride, you can get just a ride anywhere. You can get just a ride at Universal. You can get just a ride at the State Fair. Right? So you want people to be emotionally attached to that. When they get emotionally attached to it, they can't just flick that on and off like a switch. And if you can, then are you even really emotionally attached to it? Have you really made those deep connections? Or is it just an amusement park and now you're looking forward to the next ride because you're not emotionally attached to any of these things? I don't know. Just give people a minute to grieve and to mourn. And to see, like, seeing this trajectory of where Disney is going to becoming more like Universal, which is not a compliment. Because Universal itself, if you want to see, like, the alternative to what Walt Disney did by creating unnecessary things.
I came back from Paris one time about 10 years ago, went to Disneyland, and I looked on the side of Sleeping Beauty's castle, and I called John Hench over at Imagineering. I said, I just noticed something about Sleeping Beauty's castle. There's a spire there that I saw last on top of Notre Dame and the Palais de Justice in Paris. I said, how long has that been there on Sleeping Beauty's castle? He said, 20 years. I said, who put it there? He said, Walt did. I said, why? Because he loved it. I said, That's why I love Walt Disney. It cost $100,000 to build a spire you didn't need. Huh? The secret of Disney is doing things you don't need and doing them well, and then you realize you needed them all along.
Go to Universal, where it's just e-ticket after e-ticket after e-ticket, surrounded by a bunch of stores, and it's all just crowded and hot and crowds and concrete and fiberglass, and you can't get away, and there's nowhere to go and nothing else to do except these e-tickets. Go to Universal then if that's what you want. Go see that. What I love about Disney, used to love about Disney, is that you did have that variety and you had those quiet spaces and you had those not just e-tickets but also A, B, C, and D tickets. The variety of things to engage you and to pace out your day and all those things. Um, you give people a minute to grieve all that stuff with it before you tell them to off and that you're glad it's gone and that you now all of a sudden never liked Rivers of America and now all of a sudden never liked Tom Sawyer Island. Um, and calling them a racist because they liked the most popular ride in the park, that sort of thing. Give people a minute to grieve this stuff and stop being like this toxic positivity where Disney can do no wrong and Disney should never be criticized because Disney's your religion. Like just give people a minute already. Like, yeah. But on the plus side, Disney toxic positive Disney fans really make it easy to help get over Disney. Um, I'm at the stage now where, yeah, Disney is kind of a dead brand. Disney is classic Disney. The Walt through Eisner eras is a Disney that I like, and now the company that exists today is not the Disney that I liked, and I just have to accept that. And these people who are saying "fuck you" if you like to ride, you're emotionally attached to things at Disneyland. You're a racist if you like Splash Mountain, whatever. Are really making it easy. Disney's making it easy to not be a fan anymore, and the fans are helping that out.